Good morning, first chapter fun. We are back. I was just saying that sometimes Facebook boots me out, and it did. It took my word for it and it booted me out. So I hope that whoever just got chucked out of Facebook of this recording will be able to find me again. So let me start again. Facebook, first chapter fun, the place where I am reading the first chapter of a different book every day at 11:30 a.m. Hello Natalie, I was saying I was going to sometimes get booted out, and then I did. I mean, that's just, we could, in England we would call that sod's law, that's just the way it is. So sorry about that, Heather. I'm starting again. This is the book I'm reading from today, No Bad Deed. And I was reading this, I went to pick up groceries yesterday, and they were delayed, and I was really happy because I was rereading the first chapter, because I always reread the first chapters a couple of times so I don't fluff the lines too badly. And I was really happy that the groceries, that they were delayed, because I wanted to keep reading. It was great, it's fantastic. A really, really stellar first chapter. So this is a thriller, as you can probably guess from the cover and from the title. No Bad Deed by Heather Chavez. And it's such an exciting premise. So let me tell you a little bit, hi Kaylee, a little bit about Heather. She is a graduate of the University of California at Berkeley's English Literature program and has worked as a newspaper reporter, editor and contributor to mystery and television blogs. Currently she's employed in public affairs for a major healthcare organisation where she writes human interest stories. She lives with her family in Santa Rosa, California, and is at work on her second novel. Yes, Heather, get on with it, because we want to read that one as well. Oh, Natalie has just said, I spy new shelf art. Yes, we keep changing the thing that's behind us. Right now we have Jon Snow. I'm just going to leave it there. Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. If you haven't watched it, you need to watch it just for him. Anyway, back to today's book. No Bad Deed. Here's that gorgeous cover again. It is out now, so you can get your hands on it now. Not right now, because I'm going to read to you, but afterwards, within 5 minutes. Let me read you the blurb. So this is No Bad Deed. Driving home one rainy night, Cassie Larkin sees a man and woman fighting on the side of the road. After calling 911, the veterinarian makes a split-second decision that will throw her sedate suburban life into chaos. Against all reason and advice, she gets out of her minivan and chases after the violent man, trying to help his victim. When Cassie physically tries to stop him, he suddenly turns on her and spits out an ominous threat. Let her die, and I'll let you live. Ooh. A veterinarian trained to heal, Cassie can't let the woman die. But while she's examining the unconscious victim, the attacker steals her car. Now he has her name, her address, and he knows about her children. Though they warn her to be careful, the police assure her that the perpetrator, a criminal named Carver Sweet, won't get near her. Cassie isn't so sure. The next day, Halloween, her husband disappears while trick-or-treating with their 6-year-old daughter. Are these disturbing events a coincidence, or the beginning of a horrifying nightmare? Her husband has been growing distant. Is it possible he's become involved with another woman? Is Cassie's confrontation with the roadside attacker connected to her husband's disappearance? With all these questions swirling in her mind, Cassie can trust no one. Maybe not even herself. The only thing she knows for sure is that she can't sit back while the people she loves are in danger. As she desperately searches for answers, Cassie discovers that nothing is as random as it seems, and that she is more than willing to fight, to go to the most terrifying extremes to save her family and her marriage. Natalie just wrote, what? This sounds incredible. I know, I'm telling you, I am spoiled reading these first chapters to you, discovering all these brilliant books. And this is published by William Morrow, division of HarperCollins actually. So we are pub sisters, Heather and I. Definitely one you need to have on your radar, and it's out now, so you don't even have to wait. So let me read you the first chapter. This is No Bad Deed by Heather Chavez. If my kids had been with me, it wouldn't have happened. I would have stayed in the minivan, doors locked, windows rolled up, just like the 911 operator instructed. But my husband Sam had the flu. He'd picked up Audrey hours before, and Leo was studying at a friend's house, so I was alone in the van. Driving in full dark, I felt like I was alone in the world. Clouds thick with unshed rain drifted across a half moon, drizzle seeping from them even as they threatened to spill open completely. During my commute, the 2-lane road carried a steady stream of parents on their way to the elementary school up the road, and 9-to-5ers headed to West Santa Rosa. Several hours post-commute, though, it was nearly deserted, owing equally to the time and the weather. I finally surrendered and switched on my wipers. Only a couple of miles from home, my phone buzzed in my purse. A name popped onto the minivan's in-dash display, Sam. With the Bluetooth, it would have been easy enough to connect the call. Instead, I ignored it. After ending a 12-hour shift fishing several dollars in coins out of a Labrador's stomach, I was too exhausted for another argument. Lately, all of our conversations seemed to start with the same 4 words. I love you, but... Sam gave me only 3 rings to answer before ending the call. In the sudden silence, my stomach grumbled. It was the 3rd time that week I'd missed dinner, and it was only Wednesday. Probably the reason Sam had called. I love you, but your patients see you more than our kids. That was a popular one. I popped open the energy drink that had been sitting in the cup holder for days and took a sip. I grimaced. How did Leo drink this stuff? I was pretty sure a can of cat urine would have tasted better. I drained half of it anyway. Caffeine was caffeine. On the north side of the road, from among the oaks and evergreens, the old hospital slipped into view. Paulin Creek bordered the campus on the south, open space and a flood control reservoir beyond that. Vacant for years, no one had reason to stop at the hospital. Still, I thought I saw movement between the buildings. A chill pricked the back of my neck. I wrote it off as the surge of caffeine. Distracted, I almost missed the shape that streaked across the road. I jumped in my seat. A deer? No, it ran on 2 legs. A person. When I reached to return the energy drink to the cup holder, my hand shook, so the can caught the lip of the console. It bounced onto the passenger seat, liquid pooling around my purse. The string of expletives I let loose would have gotten my teen son grounded. I pulled onto the shoulder, threw the car into park and peeled off my cardigan to sop up the puddle. As I used a wet wipe from the glove box to block my sticky hands, I squinted at a spot near the hospital's entrance. I strained to see what lay at the edge of my low beams. A sliver of moon softened the night, the headlights of my minivan slicing through the branches to the trail beyond. It's probably a jogger. In the rain. In the dark without reflective gear? The primitive part of my brain scoffed. Raindrops pinged off my windshield. I switched on my bright lights and could see better now. I identified a second shape next to the first. Just off the road, they were about the size of the topper on a wedding cake. I put the van in gear and pulled off the shoulder, driving slowly, trying to understand what I was seeing. With Halloween the next night, at first I thought it might be a couple of teenagers. What better place to stage a prank than a hospital that sat abandoned on a semi-wooded hillside? But as I drew close, my focus sharpened. A man and a woman stood in the spotlight of my high beams. They were arguing, no, fighting. Sam and I argued, but this was not that. This was balled fists, shoving, rage, and because of that, the dark-haired woman in the yoga pants didn't stand a chance. The woman curled in on herself, dropping her chin and tucking behind her crossed arms, making herself smaller, even as the man, bald and more than a foot taller, did the opposite. I stopped the car, but left the engine running. My fingers were clumsy on the keypad as I dialed 911. The woman glanced in my direction, but the man in the jeans and white t-shirt never turned my way. Less than 20 feet away, and he didn't as much as twitch. "What's your emergency?" the dispatcher asked. I startled at the voice, unable to answer. I trembled, double-checking that the doors were locked. I gave my location and then described the couple. "They're fighting," I said. "Is he armed?" "I don't think so." "What's he doing now?" Before I could answer, the man picked up the woman and tossed her down the embankment toward the creek below. He showed no more strain than a Siamese tossing a lizard, and for a moment the woman was pinned to the sky by my headlights. Then she fell, disappearing beyond the tangled brush at the trail's edge. A sudden weight pressed against my chest. The dispatcher's voice, so loud a moment ago, grew distant, warped. My lungs seized, and my vision darkened at the corners. An urge to hide overwhelmed me. I wanted to crawl into the gathering void and disappear. It felt like a memory, though it couldn't have been. I had no memory like this. Suddenly I felt as vulnerable in my locked car as the woman on that trail. Was I having a stroke? Panic attack? My mouth was dry, my tongue a useless lump. I wasn't certain the dispatcher understood me. What the hell is happening? The man pulled something from his pocket. A cell phone? Something else? Then he was gone, maybe over the trail's edge. Seeing him disappear was enough to snap me free of whatever had rendered me speechless. "He has something," I said. "What's he doing?" The dispatcher's voice remained neutral, but I was freaking the hell out. "I don't know, they're not there." "They've left the scene." "No, I just can't see them." My hand dropped to the door handle, though I had no intention of leaving the van. As if sensing the gesture, the dispatcher instructed, "Stay in the vehicle." I formed a fist around the handle. Before the dispatcher could ask any additional questions, I slipped my phone in my pocket and opened the door. I'm not entirely sure why I got out of the van. It might have been because of that other girl. When I was finishing up my undergrad degree, there was this brunette in my microbiology class. I'm ashamed to admit I didn't remember her name. I remembered his name, though, Dirk. I remembered because it was one letter away from being entirely fitting. A certain kind of guy loved Dirk, and, if I'm being honest, a certain kind of girl too. The kind who thought jealous rages and the bruises they left behind were romantic. At an off-campus party celebrating the second-place finish of some sporting team, Dirk had openly berated for over an hour the girl whose name I didn't remember. He wasn't her boyfriend, but wanted to be, and until that night, maybe she'd wanted the same thing. Then he'd started grabbing her and pushing her. When finally he'd slapped her, only one guy grabbed Dirk's arm, but even that guy hadn't held on to Dirk's arm when he had followed the girl from the room. Minutes later, she went over the balcony railing. She broke an arm and a couple of ribs and would have broken her skull if not for the head she bounced off before hitting the concrete. No one actually saw Dirk push her. Maybe it was that girl who made me get out of the van now, or maybe it was just that anger always made me do stupid things. My heart tumbled in my chest. About 15 feet away, halfway between the trail's border and the rushing water, the man stood over the woman, his hand clenched on a switchblade. A knife. He had a knife. Other than placing that 911 call, I could think of no way to be useful. It had been nearly 20 years since my last fist fight, and even back then I hadn't been stupid enough to take on guys twice my size. As the man's anger unspooled, his victim chose the defence often used by prey. She went limp, still. Her nose seeped with blood. I swallowed and shouted for him to stop, even as that stupid-making anger rose in me. If the man were threatened by my sudden appearance, or even aware of it, he didn't show it. He reached for the woman, his hands tightening on her sweatshirt. He yanked her toward him so close her chest butted against his, the knife dangerously near her cheek. Still much closer to my van than the attacker, I risked a step forward. "The police are coming." I tried for threatening, but the tremor undermined me. The man stared up at me, through me, rain tracing a slick line from scalp to stubbled chin. His muscles spasmed with rage, and there was a fuzzy disconnect in his eyes. At that moment, the man in front of me was hardly human. He was an animal, his body tensed, his breath ragged. "You should go," he said. "I don't think I should," I said, even as I flashed to thoughts of Audrey and Leo. While I didn't move closer, I couldn't leave her to him. My hand fell to my pants pocket and the outline my phone made there. The man returned his attention to his victim, but his voice carried to where I stood. "Who do you love?" he asked. Though he looked at the woman, the way he raised his voice made me believe the question was for me. It startled me, not just his words, incongruous in the setting, but the voice itself, which lacked any of the emotion that corrupted his face. The man dropped his victim to the ground, holding her there with one of his muddy boots. Then he twisted his head to stare up at me. "Your life is already fucked up. You just don't know it yet." He punctuated the commentary with a kick to the woman's torso. Then he dropped into a squat and repositioned his blade so it faced downward toward his prone victim. I tried to remember what I knew about how to handle aggressive animals. If nothing else worked, if a dog attacked, you were supposed to hit and kick it in the throat, nose or back of the head, look for a weapon, break bones. I knew if it came to that, I would be the one broken and likely stabbed. I picked up a rock, felt its weight. I threw it, but in my effort to spare the woman further injury, the stone landed several feet from my target, swallowed by a flurry of soggy leaves. I slid a few feet farther down the trail, still at a safe distance, and picked up another rock. "Don't do it," I said. He laughed at this, his full attention on the woman. I threw the second rock, and it caught him on the cheek. With the back of his hand, he rubbed his skin there once, but remained focused on his prey. His shoulder cocked. The woman struggled with renewed fervour, apparently recognising, belatedly, that whatever emotional connection had once existed between them wouldn't save her. His anger wasn't going to blow over. He planned to use that knife. Until that moment, each of my actions had been chosen. I had decided to pull over, to call 911, to get out of the van, to throw the rocks. But when the man raised the knife, the inexplicable terror that had seized me in the van returned, my lungs expanding in hot, rapid bursts. At the cusp of darkness, I saw something that wasn't there. Another woman, another time, imaginary, but as real as the rain and the mud and the blood rushing in my ears. I didn't intend to interfere more directly, not with the faces of my children so rooted in my thoughts, but I stumbled and found myself sliding down the embankment before my conscious mind recognised the immediacy of the threat. I was as surprised as the man when I stumbled into him, my trajectory a combination of clumsiness and luck, the blade intended for the brunette's torso instead grazing my arm. Barely a scratch, but I yelped, a sound I'd heard many times from animals, but that was unfamiliar in my own throat. He lost hold on the knife and it tumbled into the water. I fell backward onto the marshy creek bed. Perception became as slippery as the rain upon the rocks, my heart a thunderclap in my chest, the woman beside me still, the man's face warped with sick purpose. Then, suddenly, he stopped. He dropped to a crouch beside me, grabbed my face between his hands. His eyebrows knotted together as he studied me. I had no doubt he could snap my neck with a single twitch. "Why the hell are you doing this?" he demanded. "Who are you?" He was so close, his voice so thunderous that my ears vibrated. It was then that I noticed a stain on his t-shirt that might have been blood. I meant to tell him that I hadn't intended to interfere, that it was all a stupid accident, but the words wouldn't come. He reached out and grabbed a large handful of my hair, red and long and easily twisted around his fingers. He yanked it, pulling my face even closer. Then Finally, thankfully, I heard sirens. For only a second longer, he studied my face, and I his. Broad nose, a bump along its bridge, left ear shriveled and folded in on itself, a white worm of scar tissue that prevented stubble from growing along one patch of jaw, a man who liked to fight, and not just with women half his size. He seemed unconcerned that I would be able to identify him, testify against him. "Let her die, and I'll let you live," he said. He nudged the woman with his toe. "Probably not much of a choice anyway. She's close enough to dead." Then, almost before I understood him, he loped away, up the hill and toward the road where I had so helpfully left my minivan and its key. He would get to my car first, my registration, my purse. In moments he would know my name, my address, and the names of my husband and children. What would you do? That was the amazing first chapter of No Bad Deed. I had said to Heather I wouldn't read the whole thing. I would stop when she gets out of the car, but I couldn't do that to you. I couldn't do that to Heather, and I couldn't do that to everyone watching, because this is one hell of a ride. No Bad Deed by Heather Chavez. It is out now. You can get your hands on it right now, and you don't even have to wait. Isn't that great? So I hope you enjoyed that episode of First Chapter Fun. I sure as heck did. Tomorrow, let me tell you a little bit about episode 38. 38. We have Exhume by Danielle Girard. That is tomorrow's book, another thriller, and this will be at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. Before you go, I am reading for, well, actually doing a read and a talk for Canada Performs tonight. #Canada Performs. The National Arts Centre has put together a whole string of performances from authors, musicians and singers, all artists, all kinds of people are doing live events to help everyone beat the COVID blues. And it is my turn tonight on my Facebook page at Hannah Mary McKinnon at 7 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. So I'd love to see you there. That will be really fun. I'll be talking about writing and my author journey and chatting about my books, and you can ask me tons of questions, and it would be really lovely if some of you have time to spare and pop in and say hello. So that's at 7 p.m. Eastern tonight on my Facebook page. So that's it for today's First Chapter Fun. I hope you had a good time. I hope you enjoyed that chapter. And I hope that I will see you tomorrow at 11:30, as always. And it'll be tomorrow. My iPad's doing funny things again. 11:30 tomorrow morning Eastern Time. Until then, as always, please stay safe, stay kind, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for watching.